Folks, it looks like we've gone live again. Something I seem to do every week at this time, yes. Nice to see folks here. Hello, my name is Chris, and I'm the host. I've got another channel you may have heard of or seen before called Comic Tropes. But on this channel, I do my live streams. It's all to not hurt myself with the weird YouTube algorithms and stuff. Hey, look who's there, Chrissy. Hello also to Robert, and hello to Andrew. Nice to have folks here. Hello, James, Jeremy, Iron Shell. So nice to see some familiar names every week. I love it. Thank you guys and gals and all. That's really nice. I've got some comics that I'll be reviewing. I'm pretty excited about. Got something I'll be drawing. Got a little bit of news of the week that we can talk about. Comic book news. Hello also. Let's see. We've got Jack and Bryan. Nice to have you folks here. Lovely. Good. So, looks like we've got good stream health. We've got cameras going. We've got everything we need to do this. So, all right. We've got Joe. We've got Super Pickle, maybe? I'm guessing at how that might be pronounced. But, grateful to have everybody here. Hello, Hannah. Hello, DCAM. And, yeah, I'm going to start off reviewing the comics that I read this week. And you know what? Relatively light week, so let me get into this. The one I want to talk the most about, I put right up front here. People have been telling me to pick up the Nightwing comic for a while now. The one written by Tom Taylor with art by Bruno Redondo. And man, I guess I've been sleeping on it because this is the first issue that I picked up. And I picked it up because I knew that the artist did something that I believe has never been done before, which is every single page it all lines up to form a single panel. I've never seen that done in comics before. Amazing. Bruno Redondo has been playing with, like these sort of like figures that you can sort of flow through. Like it's all the same person. You're sort of like capturing them at different points, but like the background is the same. It's a unique way of looking at time passing in comics, and it's been done before, but let me show you a little bit of this. It's amazing. So we've got like Dick Grayson here, right? Like walking down an overpass on a city street. The back of this car is green. You can see like where this platform is. That continues right here onto the next thing. Now we've got bad guys shooting at him, and he's running, and he jumps up an alley and puts on his Nightwing costume. You can see like what kind of background elements we have here, and it continues. Folks, it continues for the entire issue. This makes me want to buy a couple extra copies of this comic, take out the pages, and line them up for one massive, like 22-page, I guess, poster. Oh my god, I have never seen anything like this. Wow. Not only is this great artwork, it's innovative. I've never seen something like this, and it flows. It's got such a cinematic quality to it. We see him, go through fights, kicking and punching different bad guys, and just making his way across. There's a piece I really love here, okay? He's chasing some bad guys in a van. He gets on a motorcycle and takes it on an overpass, and now the overpass is deep in the deep background. And yet the artist has put all these nice, precise details in the front that kind of tells us everything we need to know about Gotham. It's not Gotham, excuse me. Bloodhaven is the town that Nightwing operates in. Just gorgeous. Just gorgeous. There's even like sort of a time break here where Nightwing is talking to Batgirl, and she's like, hey, wait for me. And you've sort of got, like, even though it's one continuous image, you can totally tell that there's been a time break for her to catch up, and now they come in, and all of a sudden things are, again, in the foreground. So just the depth of field to this. There's always a foreground, a middle ground, and a background, very clearly delineated. The gesture to get all these poses to cleanly line up. The amount of planning this must have taken, I don't know. I feel like he must have taken more than just a month. Like that he had like heads up to get this in the works. Yeah, somebody just said, Ken Burns says, most innovative comic I've seen since G.I. Joe 21. G.I. Joe 21, very famous issue. Larry Hama wrote and illustrated that with no dialogue or sound effects. It was the silent issue. And I think that there probably had been some silent comics before, but it definitely wasn't much of a thing. It still isn't much of a thing. That was a very innovative comic. You know, we've seen things like this. You know what? It's somewhat typical to have maybe a big panel or a splash page for a character like Spider-Man. You'd see several instances of the character moving through the scene. But to do an entire comic where you could cut out these pages and line them up to form one whole issue. And it's not a hugely deep story, but you do get a sense of his character. He's basically rescuing his dog. There's a hit out on him, and somebody kidnaps his dog. Bruno Redondo has been doing sequences like this for certain splash pages in previous issues, but now he's done an entire issue like that. And I'll be honest, I think that this thing is a complete work of art. If I had read this in time for my top 10 comics of 2021, this is the kind of thing I probably would have had to at least give it an honorable mention if it didn't make it into the top 10. I'm blown away by how much I love this. I am going to just sort of pour over the storytelling in this in the days to come. If you haven't read this, because I haven't read the previous issues, get to a comic shop and get a copy of this comic, folks. I feel like this is the kind of thing that will be talked about, at least in academic circles, in years to come, and it will become very famous. And you'll be able to get this in, trade paperback collections and stuff. But I feel like this is a comic that you'll just sort of want to own for its innovative storytelling, no matter how much you care about the character or not. If you've ever cared about the character, that's a bonus. I really am impressed. This is definitely a strong recommend. Best thing I read this week, purely for what the artist Bruno Redondo has done. And you know what? He couldn't have done it alone. So I don't know exactly how much of it could have been Tom Taylor's idea. Like, hey, you've been experimenting with this certain storytelling technique. I'm going to give you an entire issue where you can flex those muscles. I don't know. It's a collaboration. I'd love to hear about that if these gentlemen do some interviews. There was an episode of Mr. Robot that was one continuous shot. Reminds me of this comic. Yes, there's a famous movie by Alfred Hitchcock called Rope, where it looks like it's all one continuous shot. There's hidden cuts, with like something in the extreme foreground that'll pass by the camera, and that's where you can hide a cut. That's what this feels like. It feels very cinematic, but it's cinematic in comic book terms. It does feel like it's one continuous shot, which they've done in various TV shows and movies when you're trying to be experimental. And it really draws you in. It forces you, as the observer, to follow along with the pacing that artist has created for both film and comics. Just incredible control of the storytelling. Incredible. I can't say enough positive things about this. I don't think it could be done much better. Other people may try to duplicate this. I'd be stunned if they could do a better job with the depth of field, the clean, clear action, and the pacing. There's so many good things about this. It might warrant its own episode at some point. So, just starting off with something I give a strong recommend to. I know I talked a lot about that one. I'll be a little quicker about the rest of these. This is the final issue of Eat the Rich by Boom Studios, Sarah Gaily and artist Pius. Mostly sort of a satire of the rich versus the poor, where the rich eat their hired help at a certain point, and this girl has been invited to marry into the family. I guess I won't spoil exactly how it turns, but the title kind of gives you a sense of where it's all going. Decent satire, good art. Wish I cared about the main characters a little bit more. So, slightly better than average. Enjoyable. House of Slaughter I've really been enjoying. In fact, I've probably been enjoying it slightly more than the last arc of Something is Killing the Children, because technically this is its own title, House of Slaughter, but Something is Killing the Children is on, sort of a hiatus while House of Slaughter is coming out. So you could almost think of this as the next chapter in the story. It's just that it's set in the past slightly. And it focuses on a supporting character from the first couple of arcs of the book called Aaron Slaughter. It examines this monster hunting house that he grew up in and this outsider who comes from a different house of monster hunters and their romance, as well as fighting monsters. I like it quite a bit. But you have to like this sort of scratchy art and be into, just monster hunting in general. The only criticisms I have are really the same as I had in the original Something is Killing the Children book, which is just that the monster, it's a horror book, but I don't find that monster design especially scary. It's like a big spider, essentially. It just doesn't have necessarily the menace that I want it to have. So I feel like that could be something where you could like escalate the horror a little bit more with a little bit more of a creepy new monster design, because there could be other monsters out here. So anyway, decent, better than decent. I like it. Refrigerator Full of Heads, I'm enjoying, but I also sort of, it's starting to make me realize here, this is issue 3, just how much I loved the original this is a sequel to, which was called Basket Full of Heads, and that was written by Joe Hill. This one is written by Rio Ewers, and the art is definitely good for it. It's about, these supernatural weapons, that Norse weapons, specifically an axe, where if you decapitate someone, they stay alive. And it's got these 2 special agents that are sort of doing something possibly off the books to get access to these weapons, and then a bunch of bikers who've been hired by a mysterious third party that we haven't met yet, that are all trying to get access to these powerful weapons. It's good, but, and by the way, this page is cool. Like, it talks about some of the other weapons, Norse weapons, and the artwork is great. The artwork here is like really special. I like that. So it is good art. This was the main character in the first book. She's just a small supporting character so far in the sequel, but she was way more interesting to me as a main character. She was way more, sort of like, I don't know, feisty, but self-assured and competent, even though she was in way over her head and like in a super dangerous situation, a really horrific situation. This one sort of brings that, like, what was horrific in the first one is now sort of over-the-top action. It's almost like, going from a movie like Alien that was horror to Aliens that was action. The menace is still there, but it's definitely not as intense. It's a lower level. So I would say that Refrigerator Full of Heads is good, but Basket Full of Heads was excellent. So by comparison, it's kind of tough. Basket Full of Heads was really, really good. We're almost done, I guess. Yeah. I like this. I make no bones about how I'm biased. I like Rick Remender's style of writing. I think he's got really interesting ideas and that he writes well-developed different characters. And this book is all about this guy here has witnessed a murder, and he seems to be impersonating a hitman so that he can get to the bottom of what happened to his friends. Seems to be. This is still a mystery. I'm just making some assumptions. In this one, he is working with a hitman to kill this woman. Of course, he steps up and helps save her. And then as soon as they get away, she's like, where's my kid? And he's like, kid? She's like, yeah, I had a kid back at my apartment. He's like, oh my God. He's like, we can't. He's like, we escaped. We're almost over the Canadian border. She's like, no, we're going back to get my kid. So he's in over his head, and it's a big mystery as to like exactly who's behind this stuff. But it feels very much like a movie. It does. And in fact, I feel like I look at this design of this character, and I can't help but think of the actor Benedict Wong. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but it definitely feels like it's designed for him. Who knows? A decent crime comic. Last book I read, and I like this one quite a bit. This one, the second issue of Venom, I started to sort of go, maybe a little too sci-fi for me. Maybe I'm not super into this run on Venom. But this brought me back by refocusing on Eddie Brock's son, Dylan, and the symbiote itself, who wants to sort of protect Dylan because Eddie at least seems to be dead. Also, the Life Foundation, who was the original enemy of Venom back in the 90s, has basically reestablished themselves. They seem to have resources that indicate that they may have ideas of what's happening in the future, because they've had companies make investments on swings in the stock market that no one could realistically predict. That hasn't been explained yet, but I think that there may be something to do with time travel, because in the last issue, when Eddie Brock was dead, he found out that he actually still existed as a consciousness throughout all of time and space, through all symbiotes. So I'm sure he'll get back to being a normal person at some point. This is comics. But for now, this is about, this really young teenage kid that's got no one looking out for him. And the Life Foundation has taken out his symbiote protectors. So no matter what, it's good artwork. Bryan Hitch is great. And Ram V is someone that I've really discovered towards the end of this year. Ram V has been acclaimed for books like Swamp Thing, but the one that I really took notice of from him, I believe that was also Boom Studios. It's called The Many Deaths of Layla Starr. And if you watch my latest Comic Tropes episode, I list the top 10 books for the year, my opinion, of course, and I think The Many Deaths of Layla Starr, written by Ram V, was definitely one of the 10 best of the year. Yeah, somebody asked who's writing it. It's Ram V, and that's an abbreviation. He's got an Indian name, but he's shortened it so that we, the Western audience, can easily get his name. Ram V is what he goes by. It's good. But the best thing, just to reiterate, Nightwing. And I'm going to flesh this out a little bit, but I've started to sketch out a Frank Miller-esque Dark Knight here that I want to do some inking and some detail on. But I will just mention briefly, this isn't stuff that I read this week, but I did get some comics and comics-related stuff for Christmas, and so I just thought I'd share with you stuff that I will be reading. I believe it was my sister got me this book. Batman in the 60s was officially adapted into a manga over in Japan. They just had the rights to do sort of whatever they wanted with the character, so it's Batman and Robin in manga format. Not really going up against guys like the Joker or anything, just going up against all sorts of gangsters and weirdos and stuff. So I'm very curious to read how an Eastern audience interprets such a famous Western character. I can't wait. The artwork definitely is reminiscent of guys that were popular at the time. I'm thinking of the creators of books like Astro Boy and Devilman and stuff like that. But the artist's name is Jiro Kuwata. Jiro Kuwata. So that's interesting. I can't wait to read that. Maybe, you know what? I said it was my sister, but I know my sister got me this book, so it was somebody else that got me that book. But this is a nonfiction book. I can't wait to read this. Look how thick this is. ECF, that refers to the Daiichi reactor in Fukushima. 10 years ago now. Just over 10 years ago. Huge typhoon hit Japan, destroyed the cooling towers for their Fukushima nuclear reactor, and it went into meltdown. Took them 6 months to get it under control, and it's going to take 40 years to actually clean up. Fortunately, it doesn't seem like it led to any deaths yet, or any serious contamination of radiation. So it's not as bad as something like the infamous Chernobyl meltdown. But one of the guys that volunteered, because this is working off a lot of volunteers, you can only basically take so much radiation before you shouldn't continue to work there. One of them was an aspiring manga creator, and he's written an autobiographical tale of what it was like to work in this kind of an environment. The suits, what his fellow volunteers and workers were thinking, how they felt, how they lived, how was their day-to-day life. And I love stuff that gets deep into the weeds of how, a certain subsection of the population lives. If they had a book about how a motorcycle gang lives, or if they had a book about how a carnival worker lives, if they had a book about how a professional tennis player lives, that's all interesting. This is about a guy who volunteered to help clean up the nuclear reactor. I can't wait to read this. It'll tell me a little bit more of what happened, how Japan as a population felt, and how this specific man dealt with the stress and pressures of what he dealt with. So I think that that's going to be a very fascinating nonfiction book. I can't wait to see what that's about. And the last book I got, this is not a comic. This is an actual book. This guy, Ike, or it might be Ike Exner, wrote this as essentially his thesis, I believe, at Rutgers. Anyway, it talks about the origins of manga and how a lot of people think that, manga was based on just an evolution of various Japanese art forms. And of course, those influences would always be there. That's their culture. But this author argues, with a lot of evidence to support it, that some of the popular Western comics of the day, like from the late 30s through the 50s, were imported to Japan, became very popular, and it's what led to manga. It was basically them making their own versions of things like Bringing Up Father. That was a famous newspaper comic strip. What else was popular back then? The Doings of Happy Hooligan. These are cartoons that aren't necessarily super well remembered anymore, but except, of course, by people like us that love comics and study the history and stuff. But stuff like that and Popeye and stuff was brought over there. And, so this is like, a 200-page, not quite 200-page essay arguing what specifically influenced the original manga over there. Like how they were just doing their own adaptations of comic book storytelling. I think that's amazing. Yeah, Disney had an influence on manga. Absolutely right. So, isn't manga based off Osamu Tezuka recreating Disney's style? There's a bit of that. There's definitely a bit of that. I think Osamu Tezuka was definitely influenced by Western cartoons and comics. So that'll be some interesting reading. And the last thing I'll show you real quick, I just thought this was cool. This is just a unique anomaly. In 1992, Eclipse Comics made trading cards, 110 of them, this is all of them, of famous comic book creators. So Will Eisner, Wally Wood, Jim Shooter, so all sorts of, John Buscema, Jim Starlin, Eddie Campbell, Martin Nodell, helped create Green Lantern, I believe, Bob Burden, Flaming Carrot, Neil Gaiman, obviously in 92, still a pretty fresh young writer on stuff like Sandman and stuff. Bob Kane, well, there we go with the subject of my next video. Eric Larson. There's a really funny one in here I'm trying to find. Let's see if I can find it. Hey, look how cool Larry Hama looks. There we go. Todd McFarlane's card is just him shirtless playing baseball. I don't know if Eclipse asked for these guys to send their own photo or if they just got stuff that was more public domain. I really couldn't tell you. But obviously I got like a full set. They're in fantastic condition. I would hazard to say mint. And on the back, it'll give you a breakdown. Like for this one, Paul Gulacy, it tells you where and when he was born, where he lives, whether he writes or draws, and whether he's a righty or a lefty, what education, and then like a summary of some of the most important things that they've worked on in comics, and then just a little trivia note about them with a little like illustration to show you their style. There's Sam Keith. Sam, whose last name causes confusion, is having his early work reprinted as I before E. So, I thought that that was pretty cool, you know, like trading cards about creators. I will say, and maybe it's that it was 92, not a lot of ladies in here, not a lot of, black or Asian or Hispanic. A few, you know, there's George Perez. There could be more diversity in these cards, but who knows? I don't think that these were especially popular, but I like them. I'm very amused, and I love that I've got a full set of these things. So, just a weird little gift, and I'm just trying to put them back in so that they stay in good condition, because I don't know that they're especially valuable, but they are to me, you know, at least sentimentally. I really enjoyed these. I had never heard about these comics creators trading cards until you got them. Yeah, well, it was just like a little thing in 92, and Eclipse wasn't the biggest publisher in the world, so, you know, I don't think that they were ever necessarily like super valuable, but trading cards in general are becoming more popular. So I bet you anything there's a little bit of me talking about this on, like, you know, Twitter and Patreon and now on this that will spike some interest. I know some of you out there are going to go look on, you know, eBay and Mercari and trading groups on Facebook to try to find a set, and I wish you luck. It shouldn't necessarily go for too much. Yeah, Stan's in there. Anyone big that you can think of is pretty much in there. Hey, Hoodie Coco is here. Hoodie Cobra Commander. Is there an Archie Goodwin? Oh, there's no Archie Goodwin in there. There are some names that are missing. It's only 110 people. I'm not sure exactly how they chose that. Not a ton of people from the Golden Age, but a few. Yeah. They do not have strength, speed, and mental ability stats. No, they don't have anything like that. Alright, so I've mostly sketched out like what I'm going to ink tonight, and in case this is maybe one of your first times, the reason I usually have the artwork mostly done here, excuse me, I'm reading for an X-Acto blade, is because thinking out a layout and stuff like that takes a fair amount of concentration. I found that I generally cannot do a good job of speaking to my audience while simultaneously drawing. I'm trying to get this cap of an X-Acto knife off without going so fast that I cut myself. Bear with me. So a lot of times what I do is I'll like just lightly sketch up what I want. I'll light box that so that I've got a clean version for the show, and then I mostly focus on inking, because inking I can sort of turn my brain off a little bit and focus on still talking to you guys about news of the week or answering questions from the chat room, stuff like that. So we'll see how that goes. I'm going to try this new inking brush that I heard some good things about, and my dad got me this for Christmas. It looks like it says it's a Furetake. Yeah, I don't know. Fudogokochi. It's something. So let's give it a shot and see what I can do for inking. And I'm happy to take your questions if you have any. Maybe we'll get some topics going. I have one or two pieces of news that I'll get to as well. Just going to sort of see what this does on like something like... oh, that's very fine. It's a brush, but this is a very fine brush. Oh, I'm excited to see what this can do then. Oh, folks, I love this. I love how delicate it is. That Dark Knight is sick. Good job. Thanks. Wasn't necessarily thinking of any specific thing other than how much of a Hulk Frank Miller tends to illustrate him as. We'll see how I do there. Huh. You know what? I think I shouldn't have put the cap on there. There are. I just noticed that there are vents, and I think that'll help. Yeah, that helps the ink flow a little better. But it's not a. It's a very fine brush. The point itself is very firm and rigid. I don't know how long it'll last, but yeah, it's great. Gives me quite a bit of control. Batman Smash. Thick Batman. Yup, people got it. I won a graded Silver Surfer 14 from a comics trivia stream last week. Hey, that's pretty exciting. I don't think I've ever participated in any sort of comics trivia contest. That sounds fantastic. I would love to do something like that. I wonder how I'd do. Oh, I'd be so self-conscious that I should do well to justify having a show, you know? Spent the whole day reading Barry Windsor Smith's Monster today after you and Kayfabe brought it up, and it's so amazing and heartbreaking. Oh, isn't it, Robert? It's a pretty sad, tragic story. And there's a story behind it. I'll tell it briefly here. So, about 35 years ago or so, Barry Windsor Smith had an idea for an issue of the Hulk, a special issue that would delve into Bruce Wayne's trauma as a child, how his father was abusive. He had a story where on like one particular Christmas day, all these family members, one at a time, would start saying that they didn't want to come over to the Banner's house for the holidays because his father is just such an abusive jerk, and they would just, nobody in the family was up for dealing with it this year. And, you know, then the father sort of took that abuse out on Bruce and his mother. So he pitches that, Barry Windsor Smith does, and it gets approved. Yeah, good. Editors love the idea. And I forget who was the editor of the Hulk title at the time, but somehow it got over to the monthly writer at the time, Bill Mantlo. It's hard to talk bad about Bill Mantlo because, you know, he was in a very serious car accident years ago, and he's institutionalized. He can't care for himself. He has no short-term memory, essentially. It's pretty sad. And this is the guy that created characters like Rocket Raccoon in the pages of the Hulk, and he wrote stuff that a lot of people are passionate about, like Rom Space Knight, things like that. But he has, you know, seemingly plagiarized a little bit here and there in his writing. And he took Barry Windsor Smith's idea and he made it an issue of the Hulk. And it got past the editors for some reason. Maybe like the editor Barry Windsor Smith had pitched it to was more like the special books editor or something like that. Barry Windsor Smith was justifiably pretty upset by this. You know, he'd had an idea and somebody else took it and used it. Not awesome. Not awesome at all. But over a little bit of time, he got over it and he was like, you know what? Fine, they did their version. I've got a better version. And I don't need the Hulk to tell it. I'm going to tell my own version of this story. And he just began it as sort of his own private project. He would just sort of peck away at it in between assignments on paying jobs. Took him a long time to get it done. But earlier this year, he finally released it. And boy, the care and attention to the detail and the depth of storytelling. You know, he doesn't just tell the story about an abused kid or an abusive father. We go back in time and you know, meet that father and see what happened to him in the war that messed him up so bad. We spend multiple chapters with the mother and how she feels so trapped, even though it becomes a tragedy because she does have a way out. You know, there is a really nice guy that wants to help her, but she also feels loyal to her husband, who, something horrible happened to. She doesn't take that out. It goes into detail about the sort of villains behind the scientific experiments that want to create a super soldier, and you sort of learn why their technology is not really working perfectly. There's a specific reason you learn by the end. So you really go into a great amount of detail about every character. Boy, it's an amazing accomplishment. It really is. It really is. So yeah, I strongly recommend Monsters. I won't say any more about it in case you want to be sort of surprised by the story itself. I saw there, looks like, James Stewart says, did you get much snow where you're at? So, compared to other parts of the country and the world, probably not that much, but we got several inches. Enough that my work did close yesterday. So I got an extra day off, which was very enjoyable. I haven't had any sort of day off in quite a while, so I took advantage of that and rested up a bit, because I haven't really been able to do that in a while, so that was nice. It looks like Batman is going to beat up Will Eisner. Yeah, take that, Will Eisner. I should put, Bob Kane right here instead, huh? I'm going to move that away so that it's not as distracting. We're not going to have that distraction. Anyway, we got a lot of rain. Yeah, no, it's, so not only did it snow, we haven't had any real snow plows come around, so, a little snow is going a long way up here. So I'm sure some of you live in, Wisconsin or something like that. I know I saw that, Daniel Carhoonen was here earlier. He's, in Sweden. They probably get much more snow than what we get here in Seattle. So you guys probably think I'm a wimp. But I will also mention, so let me jump you back in time. This past July, we had an insane heat wave. Just bonkers how bad it was. And it made my air conditioner unit outside explode. The unit that pushes, I've got central air, and it pushes the air through the house. Well, so be it. We just toughed out summer. We opened some windows and used some fans. Fine, we can deal with it, because the damage was extensive. The entire unit literally exploded, blew up the capacitor, and shot a bunch of chemicals that are in the system into the vents here in the house. And we got an estimate to fix it and replace it all, the vents and the machinery and everything, and it was going to be $20,000. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't keep $20,000 hanging around for a rainy day. That's just a bit more than I have access to. So we've been saving up, Chrissy and I, to do that repair, right? And yeah, so I got that on top of a massive hospital bill because I had COVID in the spring, and some other things that are just adding up. And so the short story is, we still haven't gotten it repaired, and that means it is so cold in my house. We have to leave the water running so that the pipes aren't going to freeze. It's really cold. I'm freezing right now while I do this for you guys. Did anybody watch my top 10 comics of the year video? If you did, you may notice I'm wearing not any sort of normal outfit. I'm essentially wearing what's called a hoodie blanket, which is a super warm robe. And I'm doing that because it's just so cold in this house. We're very cold. We have no heat. We have a couple space heaters that we'll turn on sparingly when we need to so that we don't die. So I'm not going to die, but am I uncomfortable? Very. Trust me, YouTube does not necessarily pay so well that you easily have a spare $20,000 plus lying around. It's just not not a thing. So anyway, there's a little behind the scenes of what's going on in my life. I'm trying to stay warm. I am very, very cold. So that snow, it was nice to have a day off work, but I would appreciate it if it warmed up. I got an extra heater if you need it. It's not big, but it makes a room hot. No, I appreciate that, but I do have space heaters. Yeah, let's not talk about No Way Home yet, because I bet a lot of people still haven't gone to see it. You know, it's not the easiest thing in the world to make a decision to go out to a movie theater these days. But I will say that the business it's doing is insane. It passed $1 billion already. It's at 2 weeks, and worldwide it's made over $1 billion. So, if you have any concerns that Marvel and Sony won't team up again, you can definitely put those fears to rest, because with money like that, yeah, they're gonna find a way to make it work. That's all. I'll just leave it at that. They'll find a way to make more. And it's good. It's a good movie. Speaking of, like, things that are making good money, apparently this new Substack deal for creators is doing kind of gangbusters. I heard that's basically where creators can create a newsletter. It's very similar in a way to Patreon. Like, you get a subscriber. You get, a subscriber pays you, and you get a newsletter from that person. And I guess, like, James Tynion IV, he says that his, it was a deal he couldn't refuse because it was something like $500,000 up front. Wow. I don't blame you. That if you're offered a payout like that to write a newsletter about your technique and process and stuff like that, like, I think you have to take it. Makes a lot of sense to me. So we'll see if that becomes more of a thing. But we're in a new era where crowdfunding and Patreon and Substack, there's a lot of ways that you can support creators that you like for a very small amount, but that adds up quite well. I haven't explored Substack either yet. Yeah. So I would like to learn more about that as well, exactly how it works and whether it's going to be here long term or not. But it seems to be doing very well for creators. It had an incredible year. There's other big moves that happened this past week since I did my last show in the world of comics. Dark Horse Comics successfully sold themselves. There were rumors that they wanted to sell themselves, and those rumors proved to be true. They sold themselves to a Swedish holding company that owns other businesses, including THQ, the video game publisher, among other interests. And what was interesting that came out of this was that apparently Dark Horse already didn't own 100% of itself. They had sold 80% interest in themselves to a Chinese company a few years back. Just hadn't really been publicized. So now this one company owns 100% of them. The Chinese company sold off their interest, and Dark Horse's publisher, Mike Richardson, sold his 20%. And so now there's a new owner. I don't know exactly what that will mean. It basically just means that there's a company that now has access to a lot of intellectual properties that Dark Horse had. Not everything, because they did a lot of creator-owned stuff. Like, I don't think, buying Dark Horse does not give you Hellboy, for instance, just because they published it. They didn't own it. So I don't know exactly what that'll mean for the future, but it is interesting that it's a big company. And then, you know, of course, we're still hearing rumors that IDW might be losing their G.I. Joe and Transformers franchises. So there could be like a bit of a shakeup in some of the smaller secondary publishers. THQ's ownership is bad for THQ. I guess I don't know anything about that. I'm not as plugged into the video game industry. The company is near you in Sweden? Well, Daniel, you should introduce yourself. Be like, hey, I've written some comics. You guys need some help? I'm available. I'm right here in your backyard. And they'll go, okay. Right? I think so. I think so. Barbed wire. Yeah, they have probably exclusive rights to barbed wire. The talk of Tinseltown. New owners of barbed wire coming in hot. Barbed wire. What were they thinking? I get that Pamela Anderson was popular, but it's not really a great idea to give control, like, or hire somebody that really can't act. Oh well. I'm being mean, I guess. She's fine for who she is. Yeah, I remember there were some good covers for a while there. Let's see, Christopher Davis mentioned the Frank Miller cover for X, and of course that's some of the earliest work for Adam Hughes doing covers for Ghost. That looked good. So, I don't know. I mean, they own some stuff like... They probably own Mask, Virus, maybe Time Cop. A few other interesting things. THQ isn't Ubisoft or Rockstar. Come on now. Give G.I. Joe and Transformers back to Marvel. You know, I'm not so sure that, like, Marvel would do a better job. Hey, we've got a visitor. Hi, Little Bean. You want to say hi? Hold on, I'm going to see if I can show you my cat. Oh, yeah. All right. Here we go. Here's Chrissy and my last kitty. We used to have 4. Now we have 1. So he gets spoiled. So when he comes by, he gets attention. He gets love. This is Little Bean. Although I tend to call him Bean Sprout. He's a good boy. He's a really fun boy. What you doing? He wants to just walk on the table and be famous. But that's where I'm drawing, bud. You want to go on the ground? Yeah, there's a heater down there. Cameo by Little Bean. Yeah, you're my buddy. I got him a toy for Christmas. It's this, what would you call it? It's a fish, like a plush fish, but it's got a motor in it, so when you bat it, it flops. Just jumps around. He had fun with that. Do you believe some Superman writers had their own man-god complex? Never really thought about it. I guess it's possible. I can't think of one that has, but it's possible. Kitty cat. Yep. I lost one of my pets. She's survived by her brother, and he also gets really spoiled now. Yeah, I miss my cats quite a bit, but still got one. So he gets all the love and attention. but not really much in terms of snacks, because we're really focused on his health. You know, we don't want him to get any kidney disease or anything, since he's our only guy. So we keep him, you know, we give him food that he likes, but we don't give him a lot of, we don't give him any, like, you know, table scraps of meat, because it's just too high in protein at his age. What was everyone's favorite gift they received during the holidays? Great question that James asks. I was honestly thinking of asking that at some point tonight. But yeah, if you celebrated Christmas, super curious. Did you get anything that stands out as, like, especially cool, that you were especially jazzed to get this year? Would love to hear that kind of stuff. I ended up getting, just so I'll talk first since there's a delay and stuff. I got some stuff for the show. I got a gimbal to hold an iPhone, so that I could sort of do some vlogging stuff with that. And I also got a nice little camcorder with, like, you know, a boom mic, a shotgun mic, I should say, and a light. Shoots in 4K digitally. It's not a DSLR, but it shoots in 4K, that I think would be fantastic if I ever, like, went on the road, do some travel vlogging there. Let's see. I've been trying out the Paris paper you like, and I really like it so far. I love hearing that, Michael. Thanks for sharing. Ooh, owls. That's scary, Andrew. Andrew had owls attack his puppy dog. That's really scary. Let's see. $50 in candy, Clay got. Guess my gift was peace and quiet. Nothing wrong with that. I got cold hard cash. I got leather and cookie scented deodorant and shower gel. Played 8 hours of Mega Man Legends. Tickets to Kill a Mockingbird. First volume of the new Nightwing run, and a Funko Pop figurine of Mikey from the Goonies. Mikey. Goonies never say die. Probably because of my age, but I really liked Goonies. Growing up, that was a classic. That was one my sister and I would rewatch quite a bit. You got a Beta Ray Bill sketch that Daniel Warren Johnson drew on his stream a while back? Oh my god. Tom, you underplay that. I would say that's the best I've heard so far. Andrew got a root canal. Okay. Let's see. Moltar got the first volume of Fist of the North Star. That's a pretty cool book. That's an influential book. No great presents, but did receive a Beta Ray Bill sketch from Daniel Warren Johnson. I mean, wow. That's incredible. Daniel Warren Johnson has just become one of my favorite artists that's out there these days. I just really like his stuff. Sometimes there's just an artist that you see their composition and their approach to shading and technique and stuff, and I don't know, I just get sort of jealous, like, that's how I sort of want to draw, but that's not, it wouldn't work for me. Like, that's just not how I draw. But, yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. It wasn't a Christmas present. Well, it counts like one. I bought myself some Masters of the Universe toys. On this channel, I recently uploaded a vlog going to a vintage comic book shop, and I mention in it Masters of the Universe was just something that was a blind spot for me as a kid. I just wasn't too interested, so I don't know too much about He-Man. I know that there's He-Man and Skeletor, and I think She-Ra. What kind of a pen are you using for inking this drawing? This is something I got for Christmas. It's a really fine brush pen called, by a company called Kurutake. Kurutake. Yeah, Kurutake. Yeah, Kurutake. I like it so far. It doesn't quite have the same level of depth that other brush pens do, but what it does offer is a lot of control for fine details. So I'm having fun exploring how I can use that. This is my first time using it. I'm having fun with it, though. I'm having a really good time. Hopefully everybody out there is having a decent enough time watching this episode. I also got the latest Darkhawk comic and the first trade of Department of Truth. Department of Truth is pretty interesting. Yeah, that's a good one. So I did my top 10 comics of the year. Would love to hear if any of you out there have a pick for one or two of your best books of 2021. Things that like stood out more than anything else. I love hearing like recommendations like that about something people are extra passionate about. Hey, kitty. Want to come back here? No. Okay. I'm gonna sneeze. It's not the proper way to sneeze, by the way, but I'm all by myself down here, so it's okay. Don't report me. Who should I try to... well, wait. First, I'll wait and see the answers to this question. Then I've got another question. I won't split the audience quite yet. Let me see what other people are saying. What would be the top of your list of characters you would like to officially work with? I mean, I think I've said this before. First thing I'd love to do is do some of my own stories that I've got, like about my own characters. I'd love to do stuff like that. But existing characters, I've always thought that the one that would be the biggest challenge to me are magic characters. I feel like coming up with rules that work for them is very challenging, and therefore I kind of like the idea of that. I would love to do like a Doctor Strange book or something. That would be interesting. And I'd love to work on characters that I grew up loving and have passion for, including Captain America, Spider-Man, Batman. Those are some of my personal favorites. So I would love an opportunity to do that. We'll see. As I get older, that seems less and less likely, you know. But that's okay. What are you pecking at there, little bee? Oh, he's just climbing. Can you see him back there? He's right there. He's climbing the old cat tower to get as high as he can. I'd love a shot at Spider-Man 2099, but create a more wasteland dystopia. Put some sanitizer on. Yeah. I'll wash my hands when I finish drawing. I promise. Everyone wants to work on Batman. Other characters need some love. Yeah, Oh, as I think you mentioned, Far Sector was great. I've also been enjoying Robert Kirkman's Firepower. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for sharing, Jamilin. Uh, Appreciate that. Like it's interesting to hear that feedback. Yeah, a lot of reviews called out Far Sector as one of the best, if not the best, superhero book of 2021. So definitely has piqued my interest. I've usually not really been much of a Green Lantern fan per se, but Far Sector seems to be getting enough buzz that I am now curious to check it out. Yeah. What was I gonna? I was gonna ask something, and now I've already forgotten because I paused. Darn it! Oh well. I want to do a Superman Constantine comic. I even drew a reference sheet for my villain. Well, good luck. That's awesome. Um, has anybody out there been watching any shows? Is there anything you've been streaming that's been especially good? I will say I really enjoyed Hawkeye, more than I even expected to. I thought Hawkeye was a very good show. It sort of built up the stakes more than the comics, so I hadn't really been counting on that. You know, I thought it was going to be way lower stakes than it was, but instead they just sort of kept building and building, and I think they went some interesting directions with it. Gave us some good new stuff. What else is good? I've been watching a little bit of Star Trek Discovery. I'm not quite halfway done with season 3, and I like it. I like it quite a bit. I've heard some criticisms about the Paramount Star Trek stuff that is not inaccurate. I'm talking about how it's kind of action over intelligence, and I don't 100% disagree with that. And I'm not saying every episode is a banger, but in general, I kind of have liked the. I just like getting more Star Trek. It's worked okay for me. That's about it, I think. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, there is a show I really like on HBO called what's it called? Hold on, it's got a weird title. I'm gonna have to log into my HBO real quick to see what it's called, because I want to recommend this one. It's the kind of thing worth getting HBO for, in my opinion. It is called How To with John Wilson. It's a weird documentary show of this guy who lives in New York City, and every week he'll just choose a topic, like, you know, how to choose wine, or how to find the best parking spot, and the challenges. And he does all this set to clips of just weirdos in New York City, because he must just always have his camera on him, and he just sees all sorts of really weird stuff. All right, so here's some stuff getting recommended to me for shows: Super Crooks, Amazon's Wheel of Time, classic films like Vertigo and In the Heat of the Night. Those are great. Arcane on Netflix. Don't know that one. Reservation Dogs on Hulu. Orville. Another for the Orville. Star Trek Prodigy. No, I haven't checked that one out yet. HBO is so expensive in Canada. No kidding. I didn't know that it would be any more in other places. The Toys That Made Us. I think that they did 2 seasons of that, right? I think I've watched both of those. Unless they've made more seasons, in which case I would love to check those out. You know what would make this drawing go from, like, you know, whatever it is to sort of epic? Is if I knew how to do rain the way John Romita Jr. does. Oh, I feel like that could really make this look cool. Dare to dream, right? Some artists just do certain things in a way that I really admire, and for me, like, you know, I love the way John Romita Jr. tackles rain. My wife liked Only Murders in the Building. Oh, I think my sister recommended that one to me, so I gotta watch that. There's a third season of The Toys That Made Us. Oh, is that recent? I guess I didn't know that. I'll have to check that out. I don't think I go on my Netflix very much anymore. I've kind of been thinking of dumping it. I would say that the ones I use the most are HBO and Disney Plus, maybe? I bought a lot of Bronze Age Spider-Man for Kindle while it was on sale. Nice, nice. Look at John Romita Jr.'s early work. So different, shows an artist can evolve over time. Well, I talk about that briefly in the episode I did 2 weeks ago on Hobgoblin, because that was some of John Romita Jr.'s earliest work. And yeah, at first he just sort of looks like, you know, he's got a generic Marvel house style for the most part, but honestly, by the end of that run, you start to see a lot of what makes John Romita Jr. John Romita Jr. And that would continue to evolve even more on his X-Men run that followed. But by that time, you can kind of identify him as John Romita Jr. And it is interesting to sort of see him before you could 100% identify him. He was really just trying to do what his dad did, which is a good place to start. Romita Jr. worked hard on his style. You know, I haven't seen anything by him in a little while, though. I haven't read any of his more recent work. Like, when he went to DC and started doing Superman and stuff, I never kept up with that. The last thing I really read by Romita regularly was quite a long time ago now. It was, you know, the last monthly book I got by him was when he was doing a Spider-Man with John Romita... No, J. Michael Straczynski. Yeah. So I haven't really kept up with him. I mean, I've seen some stuff by him, but I haven't, like, read anything on a monthly basis by him in a little while. So I need to check him out again. Has anyone discovered a new artist in 2021 that, like, became one of their favorites? Always curious about that. What classic Christmas movies did you suffer? We did Jack Frost and Calamity Jane. I don't think I watched any bad Christmas movies. I don't think I even watched any good Christmas movies this year. I was too busy. I wanted to. I wanted to have time to watch It's a Wonderful Life. I really like that one. Just didn't have the time. I always end up watching X-Men animated series on Disney Plus after a long browse. Really interesting. Well, I hope that the X-Men 97 cartoon is good to you. No big comic book news like characters or arcs or whatever. People only talk about comics when a character comes out as bi. I don't know what you're talking about. Earlier I talked about news like, Substack. I talked about Dark Horse Comics being sold. I talked about the box office of Spider-Man. None of those have to do with character changes or evolutions or anything. Greg Smallwood is great. Yes, Greg Smallwood is great. An artist from India named Sumit Kumar. I don't know that one, so I'll try to keep that in mind, Andrew. Appreciate the recommendation there. I need to see It's a Wonderful Life. I think I have stayed away because I heard it's equally uplifting and depressing. Maybe. But it ends happy. That's not a spoiler for such an old movie. Yeah. I like it. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. I wouldn't mind Ben taking over as Spider-Man for a couple years. It'd be a lot more interesting if Kane took over the mantle, assuming he's not dead. Anybody can be not dead in comics. Peach Momoko is pretty cool. I also found a new appreciation for Jim Woodridge. Jim's great. My fiance Chrissy actually used to babysit his kids when she was younger. He's great. Alright, I need to switch to another pen for a minute. Let's see where I put it. Is this it? I think so. Well, next episode I'm working on is about a famous guy who I have to admit, I do not care for. Gonna try not to make it necessarily a hit piece, just gonna sort of talk some hard facts about how it's not as great as he'd love us all to believe. We'll see how that goes over. Sometimes people don't like it when I go negative, and I can totally respect and understand that. I'm going to try not to be 100% negative. Going to try to talk about some good things mixed in there. We'll see. Any New Year's resolutions for 2022? I don't always tend to do those, but let me think for a minute if there's anything. Yeah, you know what? when I say these, like, it can always be like used against me when I fail. So that's I think what keeps me. There's like that fear of letting people down, not letting myself down, but letting other people down when I pledge something. But I would like to pledge that 2022 will be the year that I have a script done enough that we can like I can hire an artist and pitch it to some companies. I think that that's a pretty good goal for 2022. We'll see how it goes. And I'll just pledge to continue to work on my health, continue to lose some weight. Everybody always pledges that, but I think I can stick with my routine these days, and I want to be healthy and I want to be around for a while. I don't know what else I really can pledge to try to make myself a better person. Does anybody else have an interesting New Year's resolution that they're aiming for? Would love to hear it. I really want to push out a comic, even if it's just a double-sized #1. There you go. I guess people love negative stuff on YouTube. Sometimes. Let's see. Waiting on the 2nd season of He-Man animated. Okay. Tari says hello and hope you're having a wonderful Christmas. It's pretty good. You normally keep it above the belt when it comes to criticism. I hope I always keep it above the belt. There's nothing wrong with criticism. I mean, I think I try to even mix in criticism for even stuff that I love, but yeah, like sometimes there's just stuff that I'm not a fan of. Or people that I'm not a fan of. In this particular case. We'll see how it goes. I hope people can still learn something from what I'm putting together. I want to finish making my 3rd issue of the miniseries comic I've been doing. You should. It's cliche, but I'm finally going to quit smoking next year. Good for you. My resolution would be to find out where you find those awesome button-up comic shirts. It's not a specific place for each of those, Robert. Usually I just sort of like will react if I see something interesting recommended to me on, say, like Facebook or something, like an ad, and they just sort of target me based on the fact that I'm always talking about comics. So like I get pitched comic book related stuff a lot, and I just try to like go like, okay, well that looks like it's a scam, that it looks interesting, but that's probably a scam, and honestly, like some of those shirts I think look pretty cool and fun, but like I would not wear them to a convention because the quality is pretty lousy on a lot of it, like the comic book type shirts that I have. Otherwise, it's really just a matter of looking up things like comic book button-down shirt on Amazon. I may start even phasing out wearing the same sort of golf shirts all the time, since I have just been doing that for a while. It's, I don't know, a little bit of a trademark, but it's also like I like to keep things evolving on the show, so we'll see. We'll see. Oh, other things. Let's see. This year I'm going to try to attempt to be less perfect, as it sets the benchmark too high for all those around me. Well, you're on your way there, Joe, because you spelled 2 wrong. You only used 1 O. You should have used 2. So, you know. I don't want to make a resolution since that is said to have a counterproductive effect. It probably depends on the individual. Probably depends on the individual. Probably lose weight myself. Gone on a cruise this year? Ugh. Ever since COVID, I don't think I'll ever be willing to try a cruise. The idea of getting trapped if anybody was infected with something contagious on a boat, like even if it's a cruise, that just sounds miserable. It just sounds... I just would not enjoy that. Yeah. So, I used to want to do a cruise up... from here in Seattle, like up to Alaska, see the ice shelves, but I don't think I personally have a whole lot of interest in doing that anymore. I think I just doesn't sound as fun. And maybe I'm wrong. But that's just me. New Year resolution for me would be to finish penciling my book I'm drawing, then start the second issue. Yeah, you should. It's a good idea. Let's see. I got a 6 Spider-Man bowler shirt at PAX Sun back in 2007. Oh, I wonder if it's still in stock. Just kidding around. Earlier we were saying, like, you know, what people got for Christmas that they were excited about, but I'm also always curious about this one. Was there ever anything you asked for Christmas that you didn't get, that you were always hoping for, but it just never quite happened? Maybe I've told that story before. I always wanted the Ewok Village from Return of the Jedi. Don't know why it captured my imagination so much, but boy, did I think that thing looked cool. Never got it. That's okay, but always wanted it. Can you send help? I'm being attacked by vicious puppy teeth. I can't. I'm a little too far away. I'll text somebody. Less movies, more artwork. Yeah. You know, the way I get more comic trope stuff done is, you know, I just have to sacrifice something. So I don't play too many video games anymore. Every once in a while I'll give myself a break for mental health. But mainly I've sacrificed that. I don't buy too many, really any, I should say, DVDs or anything. I just don't. Yeah, I just don't watch a whole lot of streaming stuff like I used to either. It's there, but generally just don't watch a whole lot anymore. I just try to... I still need to read comics, because, you know, how else am I going to know what to talk about? And I do go to some, like, movies and stuff, both for, like, the mental health and, you know, just to sort of keep in touch with things that are developing. It's important, but yeah, a lot of sacrifice for, like, personal entertainment stuff, so that I can produce a weekly YouTube show. Well, more than one, really, because I do this one too, don't I? As soon as I finish this, I'll be sitting down to work on the next episode some more. I've already started outlining that. Need to finish up the script, start gathering some more images. I've gathered a couple key ones, but I need to gather a lot more. And hopefully record tomorrow and start editing. That is my plan. I think I can do it, so I will do it. If you get trapped in a cruise, you'll probably lose weight. It may be. You wanted a harpsichord. It's an interesting request. I hope you get one someday, Christopher. I'm watching my niece while watching this. She's trying to grab my phone out of my hand. She'll be 1 next month. That's awesome. That's great. That's good. I'm just glad I can be some of her first entertainment. Hopefully she grows up loving comics. She'll be like, I don't know, since I was a little kid, I've just had this compulsion to read Batman. It's like I associate Batman with a good day from my childhood. I am going to the theater and video store as opposed to instant streaming. Would love to go back to the age of Blockbuster. Yeah, I do have good memories of going to the video rental store. Not necessarily Blockbuster specifically, though. I didn't always love their setup. It was sometimes convenient. It was good if you wanted, like, whatever the new thing was. It wasn't always great at a certain point for, recommendations on classic stuff or, like, finding something a little bit obscure. They didn't really specialize in that. If it wasn't getting rented, it wasn't making them money, so it wasn't carried. So they didn't have much of a focus on a deep library. They had certain old things, but not a lot. That always sort of bugged me. If you had a decent-sized mom-and-pop video rental store, they tended to have a bit of a bigger selection because they didn't want to get rid of any of their inventory, They'd just find a way to make it all fit, and so you could therefore find some good classics or underrated gems. Cult films as well. And then when I moved to Seattle, they've got a place here called Scarecrow Video, which is the biggest video rental store in the world. And that place, it's essentially a library. It's massive. It's really cool. It's got any kind of genre you can think of, like subgenre, I should say, because you'll go in and it'll be like horror, and then that'll be broken down by like aliens, supernatural, monster, animal, slasher. You know what I mean? It's really cool. Do you know what I mean? I think you do. Blockbuster here in the UK was very expensive. I was glad to see them go. They charged unfairly. I remember finding Guyver 2 at my closest Blockbuster. I remember Guyver 2. Guyver 2 was, in my opinion, better than Guyver 1, even though Guyver 1 had Mark Hamill. Guyver 2 had better fight scenes and stuff. So that was fun. Ever hear of Joe Manili? I've heard that name, but I don't know too much about him. I'd have to look that up. I've definitely heard that name, but nothing rings a bell immediately. Wait, Joe Manili, was he the original artist on Darkhawk in the 90s? That might be what I'm thinking of him from. Let me know if I'm right. Resolution for 2022. I would like to get a VA gig, finish my comics to put up for sale, and quit my day job. I don't finish my comics to put up for sale? Do you mean like sell your comic collection? I did that once, sold basically my entire collection. Kind of nice to not have massive collection to lug around everywhere. Classic movies need more love. They got studies saying young people can't watch black and white movies. Really? I've never had a problem watching a black and white movie. That's never bothered me at all. Huh. In fact, you know what? I'm pretty sure that, like, growing up, yeah, we had a second TV. It was really small. It was, like, in the basement where my mom would do some sort of arts and crafts stuff. And we had a tiny black and white TV there. And it was technically portable. So I think we even took it with us, like, once or twice on a road trip or something. I don't know why we would, but I feel like we did. I'm just trying something here real quick, seeing what happens when I try to hatch everything in roughly the same direction, whether that is pleasing to the eye at all. It's not bad. Okay, sorry, thanks. Can anyone alive today stand to watch silent movies? Yeah, one time I went to see Metropolis on the big screen. That's a silent movie, and they had a live orchestra to play music while we watched. I thought it was incredible. I thought it was a great experience. I don't know. Guess different folks feel differently about certain things, but I've never really thought about that. Like, there's not that many easily accessible silent films, but I've definitely watched some, and I've never, like, been like, silent film. Like, it's never bothered me. The Dark Old House, 1932. Never heard of that one. Sounds cool. Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and Pandora's Box are good. Yeah. Would you tell us again what that brush is? Yeah. It's by a brand called Kuretake. And then underneath it says Fudegokochi. Fudegokochi. Yeah. I don't know. I think those are just names. So, Kuretake Fudegokochi. Fudegokochi. Nosferatu, that's another good one, yeah. Have you watched Genndy Tartakovsky's Primal? No, I'm aware of it, but I don't think it's on any of the platforms that I have, so no, I haven't seen that one. Appreciate all these recommendations. You guys definitely seem to have seen a wide and diverse array of programs and films, comics. Anyone have a favorite? It's on HBO Max? Oh, I had no idea. Anyone have any favorite cover artists for 2021? Like either an individual cover or a series of covers by people that you would say like became one of your or are already one of your favorites. Super curious to hear about that stuff. I would say that Mike Del Mundo came up with a lot of good ones. I'm trying to remember how to pronounce the name, but like Tedeschino? I'm not thinking of it quite right. I'd have to look it up. I'm bad at names. As much as I know about comics, I've always been bad at just names in general, so it's a little hard for me. Anyway, speaking of Metropolis, have you ever watched the anime movie that came out in 2005? Otomo was involved. Yeah, I did watch that. I don't really remember it that well, though, I have to admit. Sorry. I definitely remember the cover, and I remember what the visuals were like for that movie, but I don't remember too much of the story. I remember it was loosely based on the original Metropolis. I don't think it was an exact adaptation. That's my memory of it anyway. Super chat? Not enabled on this channel quite yet. Super appreciate you mentioning that. I need something like 500 more hours of watch time before I can monetize this channel. That's not much, so I'm pretty excited about that. Pretty soon I'll be able to monetize this channel. And it's fun to sort of be starting over at the beginning again. Building a channel from the ground up. It's a lot of fun. Super chats would definitely help me these days so that I could pay off some of these bills. Ugh. But you guys aren't here to hear about my money woes, and that's fine. You should really try reading Action Comics by Philip Kennedy Johnson. The War World lore is epic. I'm sure it is. I don't know exactly where to jump in on that, but I'll keep that in mind. Let's see. Peach Momoko's covers are amazing, and then I see something where I was tagged in. There's no way to donate here. No, not directly here on YouTube. If you were so inclined, you definitely don't have to, but if you were so inclined, you could go to coffee.com /comic tropes, and so that's over here. See this thing? Donate a one-time tip. You can always do that, or go to Patreon. But like if you go to ko-fi.com /comic tropes, you can donate whatever you feel like at any time. Again, nobody should feel like that's required. But that always helps. Like, just to be clear, YouTube itself does not pay that much to most creators. So at some point, I'm probably going to start doing a few sponsored ads in Comic Tropes videos. That probably will have to happen at some point, because I've decided to do this as like my full-time thing and go part-time at my day job. And in order to like pay the bills, I'm probably just gonna have to put in a couple sponsored ads here and there. I'll just make sure, if I do, I promise that it will only be for things that I think are decent. I won't just take anything. I promise I won't. But just so you know, like, I probably will have to do that at some point, because I need to make a little more money than, it's a big sacrifice to go part-time at my day job. Probably making a little less than half of what I used to there, because it's commission, not hourly. So it's a big change. And And YouTube is doing well. Like, there's more subscribers, and they do some ads. But, I need to grow things like Patreon and take some sponsored ads so that I can actually continue to do what I do. It takes a lot of time to make my episodes, and I love doing it. It is work that I love doing, but it is work. It takes my time and effort, and I need to make something as a living so that I can continue to pay my bills and grow. And if I could be successful at it, there's a lot more I could do with the channel as well. We'll see, one step at a time. So thanks for asking, actually, about that, Sam. Sell these sketches. I don't know if anybody would actually really want to buy these, and if I was selling them, I'd probably feel obligated to always finish them and do like a better job as compared to like when I do it now. I am trying to get better, but I'm also using this as like my practice time for drawing. This is to relax. This is to try new techniques. If it doesn't work, hey, nobody gets hurt. Like this is my time to practice that stuff. And then I'm also like talking, so I'm sort of distracted. So it's not necessarily like if I was drawing an actual comic, just to be clear, I would argue I'd probably do a better job than these little sketches. Or at least I'd want to. Yeah, if I was selling them, I feel like I'd have to devote a lot more care and attention that could actually slow me down. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. If there was a demand for it, like I'd definitely consider it, but I wouldn't want to like make people feel obligated to do this stuff. I wouldn't want to make people like feel like they got shortchanged if they got it. I'd have a lot of concerns basically to make sure it was worth people's donation. But I really do rely off of the support of viewers like yourselves. Even if you can't donate money, just so you know, I definitely don't expect that from people. But if you can do things like hit subscribe, and comment on videos and potentially share them, those are all things you can do for free that really does help with the algorithm. And if YouTube sees that stuff is being commented on, liked, shared, that kind of stuff, then they'll at least put a few more of their own ads before and after, and that stuff can it can add up a little bit. It's not amazing, but it's better than nothing. And it gets it seen by more people, which just helps me get in front of more eyeballs, and yeah, so all that helps a lot. So if you like the show, I would love any support of hitting things like comment, subscribe. That stuff really sincerely does help. And none of that costs a dime. Just takes a tiny bit of time. There you go. I made a tiny, awful rhyme. There. I think I did an alright thing there. Let's see. Steve Sorensen just says, my 2 cents. Oh, I would gladly donate 50 to 100 if I can pick the sketch, and if I could get the sketch, it'd be dope. I'll keep that in mind. Yeah, maybe if, like, people weren't... Maybe I'd sell them, like, afterwards. That way it's, like, 100% in the hands of somebody else. Like, if they were like, yeah, I like that enough that I would pay X dollars amount. As compared to if I took a commission and I was drawing it live, I'd be like, oh my God, is this good enough? I'd be like kind of stressed about that because I don't consider myself a professional artist. I love drawing. Sometimes I can do all right with enough time, but I'm not going to put myself in the same league as, a lot of the other guys out there that do this for a living. Let's use this to clean this kneaded eraser to clean some of this up. Don't forget to favorite the video. Well, you can still hit like on things. These days, if you hit unlike, instead of that like sort of being added and everybody can see how many, like what the ratio is, if you now hit unlike, it tells the algorithm, don't show me this creator's videos as much anymore. And so you may just like never see anything by that creator again, which maybe is what you want to do. But just letting you know, like currently that's the way that works, is if you hit unlike, you're not going to see it counted up underneath. I would not get to see how many unlikes I have on something. There's no more ratios. Instead, it just pulls my content from ever being shown to you. They're like, no problem. You don't have to see this person. So it's a big decision now. I like working with a kneaded eraser. It's amazing what it pulls up. It really does a good job. I'm probably going to wrap this show up in just a little bit. So if you've got any questions that you've been sort of hanging on to, throw them out now, and I'll do my best to answer whatever I see. The sketches would make for an interesting Patreon reward. I'm not against that idea either, Callisto. Trick there is, like, I hate having to go to the post office. Like, mailing stuff out is just... You know what, if I was doing this full-time and I didn't have my part-time job as well, it wouldn't be as big a deal. But, like, just to give you an idea, when I say part-time, that's still, it's still 28 hours, and honestly a little more than that, but like 28 hours that I'm punching in to work instead of 40. But I still go in 4 days a week. That gives me 3 days a week to work on comic tropes, and comic tropes takes more than 3 days to make an episode. So, yeah. I do want to do better in terms of giving more rewards to people on Patreon. So maybe, like, I could do something like, once you hit a certain lifetime donation, I could send you one of these sketches and you just sort of get to choose. Creators don't see dislikes, thumbs down. Nope. We don't see them anymore either. It's gone. We want your art. Well, I'll give it some thought as to like how I could like make something like that happen. I have in the past, like when I did certain years, I did what's it called? Inktober. I sold some of those here and there. But there wasn't as many people watching, so it was a little easier to just like do like, mail out 3 or 4 things a year. That was not a big request, But I do want to engage with the audience and give people value if they're supporting me, so I'll give that some serious thought. I appreciate the feedback tonight. That actually is very valuable to me. Thank you all. Thank you for another year of Comic Tropes episodes. Yeah, I'm happy with what I did for output this year. And all I can say is I'm just trying to always also do better, like improve the editing. I know that the last few episodes have had a blurry lens. I'm very, very aware of that. Oh my god, the amount of comments, messages, tweets, it's been overwhelming. the lens in my DSLR is broken. I've got a new one. I just need to like install it now, and hopefully this next episode won't have any blur. I know that that's annoying. I figured it was still... I had to think about, like, okay, I could film on my camera instead. My phone, I mean. The picture quality is going to be a little, like, downgraded. It's not going to be blurry, but it's still going to be downgraded, and the audio is not going to be as good. It just isn't. I could do no episodes until I fix everything. Or I can buy myself an expensive new lens and still put out videos where I'm trying to adjust the blur to reduce it as much as possible. And that's the one I'm going with, so that I'm still putting out some content. Some people say that they don't notice. Some people say they don't mind. There's lots of people that seem to mind. I'm sorry. I had a few choices to go with. I decided to go with the best that I can currently do, and I'm pretty sure that next episode I'll have this new lens, and you shouldn't have to deal with, like lower production quality there. Trust me, it is important to continue to improve that kind of stuff. I do want the episodes to get better, not worse, like I want to do a good job for everyone. So I'm always trying to improve the writing, the performance, the opinions, the analysis, and the production. I'm sincerely trying, and hopefully someday I figure out that balance and I can get you guys, like the show that you deserve. Although personally, I think I'll always be trying to improve some aspect. I just don't see how I could ever get everything just right, But I like that I've still got like all these goals on where I can improve and stuff. I like that. It gives me room to grow. It gives me a tangible type of goal that I can set for myself so that hopefully I can get to a point where things are better. So just know that that's something I'm always working on. The blurry camera really didn't bother me that much, but I more listen than watch. Please, next Christmas, find another crazy animated special. Yeah, I did love doing those. And I am proud of my Rambo and Ninja Turtles ones. I did one other. What was the other one? I didn't necessarily think... Oh, the X-Men. That one was okay, I guess. But I'm very proud of my Rambo and Ninja Turtles ones. I will keep that in mind. Maybe I can find some other weird Christmas special to review. Although I'd probably, just so you know, like I'd probably put that on this channel, because I'm putting more of like, the comedy stuff and the vlogs. Like, it's still comic book related, but it's not an edited episode. I'm putting all that here because that stuff, when I post something like an interview or a vlog or something like that on Comic Tropes, it always ends up hurting me. Basically, like, not as many people watch it, and then YouTube won't recommend the next couple of videos to as many people, so it always brings my views way down if I put different types of content on that channel. I'm trying to make this channel a little bit more of variety, a little bit of everything. So hopefully that'll pay off. Did I know that there was going to be a Batman and the New Robin cartoon produced by Nelvana in 1988? It would have starred Jason Todd, but it was canceled when they lost the rights to Batman. Nope, I didn't know that. Been a subscriber here for a little while, but haven't been able to watch a live stream in a while. Just want to say thanks for the content and wish you a Happy New Year. Well, I sincerely appreciate that. And let me respond and say Happy New Year to you. And honestly, Happy New Year to everybody watching. That means a lot. Both this channel and Comic Tropes both grew a lot in 2021. And I'm very, very happy with that. Call me crazy, but I feel like someday I can get a channel to 1 million if I have the time to expand what I do and to let you guys know who I am a bit more. I've got a lot to share, and my biggest limitation has sincerely been time. I just don't have the time to do as much as I want to do with this stuff. I would love to have sort of a weekly show like this, but like where I have actual guests on for you. Maybe we're both drawing. To arrange something like that and to do it takes time, probably would even take some help behind the scenes. But I've got a lot of ideas for like ways to grow what I do on YouTube. A lot. Just subbed. Thank you. Appreciate it. So I've got a lot of things to do. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching me draw this weird, thick Frank Miller take on Dark Knight. I gave him like these were supposed to be like metal, like knuckles, so that he could like, it's just sort of like sewn into the glove. He can really wail on some guys. I'm going to take off, folks. Let's see. But I will have an episode of Comic Tropes for you this weekend. I'm excited about it. I think people will like it. I do. Do you do these live streams the same day and time every week? I do. For me, I'm doing it on Mondays at 5 p.m. my time, which is Pacific. Comic Tropes reminded me that I love comics. My husband and I have enjoyed watching these videos and look forward to watching and reading comics in 2022. Lovely! Could you please wish us a Happy New Year in your famous Bane voice? Well, it's really Tom Hardy's Bane voice, but yeah. You celebrate all sorts of holidays, but I recommend celebrating a Happy New Year. Brother, I want you to supply the Happy New Year. There we go. Nailed it. I don't know why. I could, of course, do the voice without, like, putting my hand over it for that, like, sort of muffled effect, but to me, that, like, just makes it so much easier to do. Folks, I've had a good time. I'm going to say goodbye, and then I'm going to sit here awkwardly for a few seconds so that I'm sure that the stream ends without cutting me off mid-stream. So, you all made my week. You all made my year. 2021 was good. I hope 2022 is really good to you. I will see you next week. You'll see me sooner because there will be a Comic Tropes episode up this weekend. Take care, everybody. Keep reading comics.